It was supposed to be a beautiful day, a neighborhood charity event filled with food, music, and laughter. Families were gathering, kids were running around, and everyone had come together to support a good cause. But what happened next turned that peaceful moment into something no one could have expected. A young black woman, well known in the community for her volunteer work, and an elderly black man who had helped organize the event, suddenly found themselves targeted, harassed by two police officers who showed up with an attitude that didn't match the spirit of the event. At first, people thought it had to be some kind of misunderstanding. But the way the officers spoke, the way they moved, aggressive, dismissive, and clearly not there to help, made it obvious something deeper was at play. With cameras rolling and dozens of witnesses watching in disbelief, the situation quickly escalated. But this story doesn't end the way you might think. These two community members didn't back down, and what they did next turned the entire moment around in a way that left everyone stunned, including the officers. What started as a case of unjust treatment became a powerful example of courage, community, and unexpected justice. But how did they flip the script? And what happened after the truth came out? You won't believe what unfolded next. The woman's name was Tasha, a local youth mentor who spent her weekends organizing food drives and after-school programs. The elderly man was Mr. Harris, a retired teacher in his late 70s who had taught half the kids in the neighborhood. Both were respected, both were loved, and neither had ever been in trouble with the law. So when the officers singled them out from the crowd, it didn't make any sense. No one else was being questioned, no one else was being followed, just them. Tasha had been handing out bottled water when one of the officers approached her, asking vague questions about whether she belonged at the event. Moments later, Mr. Harris, who was setting up chairs for a local performance, was told to step aside and show ID. There was no cause, no complaint, no reason given, just suspicion. The crowd began to murmur. Foams came out. The tension was building. Some tried to step in, but the officers barked at them to stay back. Tasha kept calm, but you could see the frustration in her eyes. Mr. Harris looked confused, then quietly angry. Why now? Why them? It was almost as if the officers were looking for a reaction, and they were about to get one, but not the kind they expected, because this day wasn't over yet. By now, a crowd had gathered. Some were filming, others just watching with wide eyes, unsure of what to do. Among them was Malik, a local college student and amateur journalist who had been live streaming the event for his small but growing social media channel. He caught the whole thing from the moment the officers arrived. His footage showed Tasha staying calm, her hands visible, her voice steady. It showed Mr. Harris politely asking why he was being questioned, his cane shaking slightly as he tried to keep his balance. And it showed the officers, visibly tense, acting like something was about to go wrong, even though nothing had. Meanwhile, whispers ran through the crowd. Why were they being singled out? Was it because they were black? Because they were leading the event? No one could say for sure, but the pattern was hard to ignore. Tasha's friend Maria, one of the organizers, began making calls to the city council rep, to local media contacts. She wasn't about to let this go unnoticed. The officers kept pressing. One of them tried to grab the phone from a bystander, claiming it was interfering with police business. That only drew more eyes. Malik's live stream had already reached hundreds of viewers. Comments were pouring in. People were watching in real time. And they were not staying quiet. Something big was coming. The energy at the event had shifted completely. What was meant to be a day of unity had become tense and uncertain. Tasha stood her ground, refusing to let the officer intimidate her, but the pressure was mounting. Mr. Harris, still trying to understand why he was being questioned, looked around for help, but his voice was drowned out by the rising noise of the crowd. People were shouting for the officers to stop. Others were pleading for calm, but the tension kept rising. Malik's livestream was now being shared faster than he could keep up with. Local activists were tagging news outlets, demanding someone respond. The comments section was exploding. People from all over the city were tuning in, watching what was unfolding in real time. Some recognized Tasha and Mr. Harris. Others were just shocked to see such a situation play out at a community charity event. One of the officers reached for his radio, calling for backup. That sent a wave of nervousness through the crowd. Backup. For what? No one had done anything wrong. But the fear was real. Tasha could feel her hands trembling, not from guilt, but from the weight of the moment. Maria stepped forward, trying to reason with the officers, but was told to back away. Then came the sirens in the distance, and that's when everything started to change. The sound of sirens cut through the air like a warning. Everyone froze. The officers straightened up, clearly expecting support to arrive and help take control of the scene. But when the second patrol car pulled in, something unexpected happened. One of the responding officers recognized Mr. Harris. He stepped out, his face changing as soon as he saw the elderly man standing there, confused and surrounded. "Mr. Harris," he asked, walking past his fellow officers. "It's me, Officer Daniels. You taught my little brother back in middle school." The moment shifted, even through the growing chaos. That one comment hung in the air. But before anyone could breathe a sigh of relief, the original officer cut in, insisting they were handling a situation and accusing the others of interfering. That's when things got tense again. Tasha, still calm but clearly shaken, turned to Officer Daniels. "Please," he said, "this is getting out of control. We've done nothing wrong." Daniels looked between her and the other officers. Something wasn't adding up, and it was obvious now, even to the officers who'd just arrived. But instead of diffusing things, the lead officer doubled down, demanding the crowd disperse and threatening arrests. People started shouting. Maria refused to back down. Malik's livestream viewership shot past 10,000, and just when it seemed it couldn't get any more intense, someone in the crowd pulled out receipts. Real ones, evidence that would change everything. The crowd quieted for a split second as a young woman stepped forward, holding a folder tight in her hands. Her name was Keisha, a local high school senior who had been volunteering with Tasha and Mr. Harris for months. Shaking but determined, she held up the papers for everyone, including the livestream viewers, to see. Inside were permits, city approvals, and signed documentation showing the event had been fully authorized. Not only that, but it clearly listed Mr. Harris and Tasha as official event coordinators, with direct commission from city officials to run the event. Officer Daniels took the papers and quickly scanned them. His face dropped. Everything checked out. The original officers stood frozen, still holding their stance, but now their authority was crumbling in front of everyone's eyes. "They're not just allowed to be here," Daniels said, his voice clear. "They're the ones who made this whole day possible." Gasps ran through the crowd. Phones were still recording. Some people clapped. Others stood in silence, watching the moment unfold. The lead officer, now visibly shaken, tried to explain, but the words fell flat. Malik zoomed in on the paperwork, catching every detail for his viewers. Just when it felt like the worst had passed, the final twist dropped. Keisha revealed that this wasn't the first time these same officers had disrupted a community event, and this time it was all caught on camera. In the days that followed, the footage from Malik's livestream went viral. Local news stations picked up the story, and city officials launched an internal review into the officers' conduct. The community, once shaken, came together even stronger. Tasha and Mr. Harris were praised not just for how they handled the moment, but for everything they'd already done for the neighborhood. Keisha's courage sparked conversations in schools and city halls about speaking up and protecting each other. The two officers involved were temporarily removed from active duty pending investigation. More people came forward with similar stories from past events, and it became clear this wasn't an isolated incident. But this time, things were different. There was proof, there were voices, and there was unity. Malik's platform grew overnight, but he didn't let the attention distract him. He used it to keep telling stories that mattered. Maria kept pushing for better policies around how community events are policed. And through it all, Mr. Harris kept teaching, Only now, his lessons reached far beyond the classroom. What started as injustice turned into impact. The community didn't just witness a wrong, they stood together and made it right. And that's something no one will forget.